Brian Bosworth had some crazy thoughts about John Mateer. We got to talk about that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. Jay, one Brian Bosworth, probably the face of Oklahoma football from like the 80s until Baker Mayfield came along, had some really intriguing comments about John Mateer and comped him to one of the greatest players of all time, which I thought was really interesting. Let's hear what Brian Bosworth had to say. He's brave. He's brave in the pocket, and when he wants to run or needs to run, he is super athletic. He reminds me a little bit of Barry Sanders, where he stops and goes lateral. It doesn't take much to get him to go vertical north and south, which with much acceleration. He's a dynamic quarterback.
Huge fan of the Boz, and I love that he always comes back, spends time with everybody, shows a substantial amount of love. But man, what was he on when he said that? Like, was he really on the caffeine that morning? Was he really jacked up on some 5-hour energy? Like, what is going on with that one? Because no, I'm sorry. I'm taking it out. Nope. Gotta go. No. Now, granted, I understand what he means when it comes to the way that Mateer can cut. I've been watching some more of his film. I've been digging into the Washington State offense, kind of seeing how him and Ben Arbuckle work together. And if there's one thing that I have noticed about him is that he does have some really good change of direction speed. And he's a very willing runner, kind of like if you get a willing blocker, that means they're going to run through, you're going to, level somebody as they cut around. John Mateer is definitely a willing runner that will find the little seam and hole, and he'll run his butt off and get past a lot of defenders and borderline take it to the house. Thing is, Barry Sanders was just absurdly talented when it came to the way that he played the game. I don't compare anybody to Barry Sanders. It's very hard for me to find somebody that I could say is that shifty and move like that. But I can say that John Mateer does have the attributes that could mistake an older eye when it comes to being Barry Sanders, just because, he was around that era. So I could totally understand the Boz looking back and be like, yeah, man, that's that. I love seeing you ain't seeing another Barry Sanders. I'm sorry. I mean, as good as running backs have been, that dude is just that. He was that dude. He didn't have to be power. I mean, he'd run you over, but he was just cut. But Mateer's fun to watch, especially when you go back and watch some of those Washington State games. 100% worth your time.
Yeah, John Mateer is going to be a lot of fun to watch this fall. I think we're going to be amazed by what he's able to do as a runner. I think right now we're probably sleeping on a little bit because we're not getting a lot of highlights out of camp with him running the football. And he probably won't because the blue jersey, it doesn't make sense. But we're going to be very much enjoying what his dual threat capabilities are this fall. But, dude, Barry Sanders is one of one. And it'd be like comparing anybody to Adrian Peterson, right? Adrian Peterson is just power, strength, speed, agility. He's kind of the total package at running back. Comping anybody to that or comping anybody to Barry Sanders just almost feels weird, like, to do that because they're just such elite players. I like John Mateer as a quarterback. I think he's going to be really, really good. But that seems a little bit out there for me to compare John Mateer to Barry Sanders. I did not necessarily grow up watching Barry Sanders. I just saw the highlights. The Year in Sports 1992 videos coming out from Sports Illustrated back in the day. That's my vision of Barry Sanders, is nobody could touch the guy. Like, nobody could literally touch Barry Sanders. And there's a reason why he was so dynamic, despite having one of the worst offensive line situations for a career that he had. I mean, he put up almost 13,000 rushing yards in his career. I can't remember the exact total, but so many rushing yards that a lot of people consider him the best running back of all time, despite not being the all-time leading rusher. So the guy is just incredibly good. But for John Mateer, all he has to do, he didn't have to go be Barry Sanders. Hopefully he doesn't have to do what Barry Sanders was having to do behind the line of scrimmage last year, or not last year, but during his career, where he's having to avoid 3-4 tacklers at a time because the offensive line is so porous. No, hopefully John Mateer is doing the Barry Sanders stuff out in the open field beyond the line of scrimmage and making people look foolish.
Yeah, he does everything you need in order to keep the chains moving. That's the one thing that you can give to him. And that's honestly, I mean, similar in a mindset of a Barry Sanders. I just think it's funny that we're comparing him to one of the greatest running backs of all time. And like you said, we watched the highlights of this dude, and you're just like, this shouldn't be legal, what Barry was doing to people on there. And I mean, I even hate it even more than I'm talking about a poke this much. Can't be talking about pokes this much in public. I'll talk about him in private, though, because I love Barry Sanders. He's probably one of my favorite players. Watching the Detroit Lions, and I felt so bad that he was stuck at such a terrible program and a definitely terrible organization that I was hoping that he'd end up getting traded to Tampa Bay or something. But I digress. John Mateer is going to be the game changer that we were looking for, even if he just does a standard get us back into the middle of the pack on offense. But the way that it sounds like he has on command, and the way that the rumor has it, the wide receiver room has stepped up. I know the last report that I saw, a note that I got was this weekend that you saw a lot of the wide receivers return. I mean, the only one you really haven't seen is Jaden Gibson. And he's still, he's basically in bubble wrap until this summer and probably fall, just because he felt something weird in his knee when he made a step. They want to make sure that he's not dealing with anything, a true setback. So we'll know fall camp for him, but majority of the wide receivers are moving around. Josiah Martin sounds like he had a really big play while in practice, which is huge. Just keep that as a note. That's massive if you've got him back. Satania, of course, doing his thing. Keontez Lewis is back, and he made some pretty solid catches, I think, with the second team. So my prediction of Giovanni Gibson, Zion Kearney with Deion Burks is still strong. If we go 4 wide, you'll probably have Satania there in the slot. And then the good thing is that Josiah Martin's young. So you can have him prepped to immediately fill the spot that Satania takes when Satania jumps up and takes Burks' spot when he's gone. But he's also, Deion Burks is back on the practice field. Sounds like he got some plays in, and then they told him to get back in bubble wrap. Sign me up for that, especially if he's truly healthy. We should be able to get through this combine good and then be even better when it comes to fall practice.
Yeah, encouraging signs on the health front. You're not hearing of any major setbacks. You're not hearing any buzz of any significant injuries out of fall or out of spring ball, that's always encouraging. I mean, I felt like this time last year, it was a bunch of dudes that were getting dinged up and a bunch of guys that weren't going to be available for the spring game. And so things trending in a positive direction. We'll see. We got little over 4 months until we get to actual games, but so far so good. I mean, offseason successful if you can get through and not have any major injuries to guys that are going to be key parts of your 2 deep in the fall. So huge stuff. What's the Crimson Combine going to look like? We'll discuss that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.